Calling all Iras. Calling all Iras. This week, we talked the Calling Auckland Outcast Haven podcast number 28. So this week, we're going to talk a lot about tournament play. We're going to talk about the Calling that Auckland just had. We had our first SEAL event in Minnesota. Dane is super, super excited for Skirmish event with the announcement and what that entails.
Yep.
And then just overall meta deck and what we thought of the decks at the Calling. Because I thought there was a lot of surprises on certain decks. The meta call was off. Even a lot of the players there, the meta call that they made was different than what came out. So let's start with the Calling. Me and Mark left a sealed event at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, something like that.
Say 5.
We immediately put the live stream on, and I fell asleep with it in my hand like a little baby at 2:30 in the morning. That is how long I watched it. It just carried the phone everywhere with me. So huge shout out to Legend Story Studios to getting that done. And I don't know if anybody remembers that. That was a huge request I had from the last call. And the biggest disappointment that we didn't get to see any. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world that couldn't play appreciates that.
Yeah, I think that goes to show that like constructive criticism has a place. Not to say that like it's because of us that they did it. Like that's not what I'm saying. But like
no, it was because of me. So just get it right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Jason. not us. Jason's
the community expressing like an interest in this thing like led to them making improvements. And I think that shows too a lot of care on their part. They're like, oh yeah, let's make this happen and make sure that it's done really well. And the production quality was fantastic. Like I got to watch almost all of it. Like it was just really well done. And I think that that's really appreciated, like you said. So
yeah, it was weird how 2:45 local time, our stream of the sealed event suddenly went dry. I don't know what happened at 2:45 local time. Suddenly everybody left our stream to go watch something else. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Like the other thing I think is really cool is they immediately took it and just put it on the YouTube channel. I don't know if you guys noticed that. I missed a chunk at the beginning and then I saw most of the rest of it, but then it was really cool to be able to go back because they've got it on their YouTube channel. It's cool to go back now, and I actually watched through the whole thing again just because as somebody who desperately wants to be a high level player and considered competitive, like I want to be one of those guys that when they talk about those names, I would like that to be me, at least for the States. Like I don't know if I'm ever going to be Matt Rogers because I was never implanted with cybernetic technology that makes me a better card game player. So I'm never going to be Matt Rogers, but I would like to be hopefully good enough one day to not just get beaten into oblivion by one of those guys. So like being able to watch gameplay over and over and over again and just see the nuances of the things they do. I know today we were just talking about in text about how, Command and Conquer played such a big part of the meta and just the little things, right? Like that subtle little trick where they said, okay, now instead of arsenaling a defense reaction, sigil. I'm going to put a sigil in there. So when they Command and Conquer to try to get my arsenal, I'll sigil it. That'll take my 3 life, and then I'll take the 6 from command, and they got nothing out of their Command and Conquer. It's like those little nuances in a game are what make you go from good to great, and seeing them on the stream, to Jason's point, and to like that outcry of it wanting it makes all the difference. I think it doesn't just give everyone a chance to see it. It elevates the play level of everybody around the world. And I think that's so important for a game's health, that it's not just a bunch of kitchen table gamers. That's an important part of every game. But the fact that they like put the highest competitive level event they had on stream lets people like us who want to be good watch over and over and over again and just pick up those nuances. And I thought that was awesome. And, to echo what you guys said, LSS, thank you. If you're listening, we know every now and then, I think they clearly listen because they got our heroes right. So thank you to whoever is listening. Please pass it on. We are very, very grateful for it.
And then welcome back to Mr. Mark. he didn't have running water or electricity for the past couple months. They finally, you know, got all that trenched in up there. So now he's got the electricity back. So back to join us, Mark. So welcome back.
I always said that, but yeah, it's been crazy. They probably don't know either. I don't know if they watch my Facebook, but have they heard the big news? I'm having a kid in May.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys noticed that on Facebook.
Oh, what? No, like, yeah,
no idea.
there you go.
Yeah.
We're really good.
The
friends
baby,
here.
the baby brute,
So
the
there's a
baby
surprise
brute is
on this one,
coming.
yeah. So yeah, I'll get to play Monarch right away, and then right after that, we'll see how much time I have left. But for now, yeah.
That's super exciting, Mark.
Got
Congrats.
the quarantine baby. Yeah. So
The quarantine baby.
yeah, I was gonna say it to the fact that they had the stream. It seemed like the two big things before was they had no streaming, and then also it's going into your skirmish topic, but the fact that something run by them, skirmish, will be able to be played via webcam.
Yeah. I was
in areas where they can't play seems like the two big things that we kind of complained about, and they are remedying them to a point. So
that's all we could ask for, right? Like we wanted to be able to watch competitive play, and we wanted to be able to play competitively at like LSS sanctioned events. And now they've got the skirmish stuff coming out with prize support. They're doing the webcams, which is fantastic. It's not difficult. If anybody watching this is like, how do I get a webcam set up so I can participate in this? It's not expensive. It's free software. Like, message us.
I just got one myself and set it up.
ping us on our live
stream. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Join the Discord and we will show you our setup. Just join our Discord. We'll help you with that.
Super simple and a great way to keep the community going and active in this.
Quick question, Dane. Can we put a counter up on here for things we requested that are happening? Just, I mean, but I
probably. I don't know.
I'm joking, obviously, but those were our two biggest.
Next one.
We've had three criticisms since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No sanctioned, no live stream, no comprehensive rules. 2 out of the 3 have been fulfilled very quickly. The third one will obviously be fulfilled on April 30th. I think we already all know that it's going to happen when Monarch drops. But yeah, they're really pushing forward with everything. So I'm super excited. I'm super happy with the direction things are going.
Yeah. Also changing up the end of time limit for Blitz. What's your guys' opinion on that? I don't know if you've already talked about it or not at all, but
we haven't.
As far as when time is called.
That's new.
I don't know what I thought of that, because we had a little bit of that come up, at least for me, at the sealed event, playing against a newer player, and of course less than stellar sealed decks, and playing, I mean, as quick as you can, and the games kind of drag out a bit. So I don't know how I super feel about it. It seems like I like that it just ends, and like it gives people an incentive not to slow play, which always sucks, but also I kind of feel like there should be maybe some other deal breaker thing at the end, just because two game losses is just, kind of killer. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to be. So we have an interview from a top 8 player coming up on Monday. In talking to him, I asked him that question specifically of if that was an issue, and at the high level events, it's just not. The players are playing so fast. And I'm going to use an example. So I have 2 favorite matchups. My favorite matchup, and I think all of us have talked about this, was when Kale and Kieran, I believe, went at it, and they made plays so fast. It was unbelievable how quick they were. Just boom, 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 boom. They knew their decks and the other person's decks so good. It was insane how fast they played.
Yeah. It was similar. It was very reminiscent, actually. So I've been off topic, watching a lot of chess videos on YouTube, and
I have too. It's weird how that's happened.
It's because of the Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit.
Yeah. But anyways, so I've been just watching more chess. Like, I've always loved playing chess, but actually watching the YouTube videos are interesting. Anyway, sorry, off topic. It was very reminiscent of that, like that pace. Like, it was just like boom, click, like boom, click, like go back and forth plays. And it was it was really motivating to watch, right? It's just one of those matches where like you see you see the results of practice and like deck knowledge and meta knowledge in that game. It's just like the perfect example of what happens when you know your deck and you know what you're playing into. And I think that was really fun to watch.
My favorite analogy of that is when you like get so locked into a deck that you just kind of you play it so instinctively. I think my favorite analogy for that is called seeing the matrix, right? It's like you're so in tune with your deck that you just see the matrix and you're built for it. You're like they throw a hammer at you, you're just like dodge it, right? You can completely warp time and space to your abilities because you're so in tune with your deck.
So staying on the calling, because there's so much to talk about here. I thought the wizard decks that I saw were strange. They're weird builds, but that's I mean they're much better players, so I'm not going to critique them for their, the play. I thought they were interesting, stuff we haven't seen before. But with 1 through 6 being Ira, and then Dorinthia and Kaino sneaking in at 7th and 8th. Everybody's opinion on any type of I don't like ban. I don't think ban is good, but I think errata is okay, or limit certain cards or combos. I'm just curious in everybody's opinion. I think you need to change it because you can't have Iras running wild like this. There's just too many Iras in the wild. Okay.
I think Monarch's going to shake stuff up enough where they're not even going to need to. Like because what's like they don't have like 5 or 6 like major events coming up before Monarch comes out, right? Like, so you've got
there's tons of armory and skirmish events coming up though. All the skirmish events have to be done.
Yeah,
so
I don't think
and that's 3 months worth. I think some should be done personally.
So here's what I think.
I don't know what, but
yeah. So my personal opinion on this is that in a lot of cases, when a deck is, because I don't think that Ira is overpowered. I think that conceptually the issue is decks will warp a meta when people over prepare for a certain deck. The over prepared for deck will like counter warp the meta to something that is built perfectly to basically just be able to play into the field better. I think going into this event, I think everybody had it in their head that the deck they had to beat was Kaino.
Yeah.
So what they did was they built a deck in Ira that they thought could beat Kaino. And then people who brought something that could beat Kaino but wasn't Ira had to build suboptimal decks because Warrior doesn't want to run a lot of blue, but in order to be viable in a Kaino meta, has to run a lot of blue. Ira, however, can be very functional and not be built suboptimally with a high blue count. So what ended up happening was everybody built decks that were Kaino could handle Kaino. The difference was Ira decks don't become suboptimal by playing into Kaino, but other decks do. So Ira rose to the top because it was the only deck in the field, not Kaino, that wasn't built suboptimally to the field. So what happened is like these Dorinthia players and Bravo players were playing suboptimal decks because they were worried about Kaino. And as a result, it let Ira just like flood the top 8.
But how do you fix? So then do you think Kano's the problem? Because if you try to rerun your deck something else, then Kano's just going to beat you. So Ira controls Kaino. So we're in a weird point of meta shakeup.
See, I would argue that there's no need to fix anything because what's going to happen at the next event is people are going to be cognizant of the fact that Ira is going to run wild. How do I answer Ira? Can I build less suboptimally, maybe dodge Kaino, and beat out the Iras that are like, because I mean, let's be honest, the Ira decks that we were seeing 2 months ago, what was that, like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago?
Completely different.
Like they were, they were like pummel Ira. Like there was, control Ira running around. Like there was stuff that wouldn't have played well into Kaino, right? That was doing better. Like Ira definitely has a more, like Ira was not suboptimal with all the blues, but there are better Ira decks than what was taken to the calling because Ira did have to tone itself back to be able to handle Kaino. But to Blake's point, I think that they didn't have to make their decks bad against other decks in order to handle Kaino. So I think that next event, if people are anticipating a ton of Iras. I mean, 1 through 6 being Ira, and then Kaino Dorinthia. It's like, okay, I'm going to make sure that I can beat Ira because I'm a competitive player. That's what I'm teching for, and making sure that I'm not going to just get blown out by Kaino. But I think that it's going to naturally balance itself back.
Do you think it's only possible to beat Ira with other Ira that's teched for Ira, or do you think a different deck can beat Ira?
No. I think Warrior's matchup is fine into Ira if it's built like Warrior and not like anti-Kano Warrior, because like typically Warrior doesn't run 14 blue, but if you look at Jason Thompson's deck that top aided with Warrior, that deck had 14 blues, which is so much more blue than I've ever run in a Warrior deck, even in Blitz. Because if I know I'm playing Jason, I basically am like, I guess I die. But if I think Kano's going to be a thing, then the answer might honestly just be running like 2 yellow Irena's Prayers and saying, you know what, I'm just gonna hold this thing in my arsenal until I have to have it to not die, but I can still pitch it for value if I'm not playing into Kano. Like there is some value to it. It sucks because I'm not using it for pushing damage, but running a couple Irena's Prayers versus running 14 blues is a huge difference in a Warrior deck, because it lets me go harder into the reds and yellows, which is where like Warrior makes its money. When you decide that you're going to underblock and then you go with, I'm going to block 6 so that I don't take that second, and then Warrior goes, cool, well, I've got 3 Iron Song response, so get wrecked. But you can't do that in a meta where you're just concerned about Kano. But if you're like Ira, yeah, no problem. Warrior has the armor to block away second Kodachis all day long and not be taken, not letting Mask trigger. Like that's where Warrior specializes, is blocking away Kodachis, because you have tons of armor.
It's interesting you bring that up, because Dane runs Irena's Prayer, and it really sucks when I play Kaino into his Irena's Prayer.
Yeah.
So I don't know why people weren't running that.
So what? Okay, this is what I think is going to happen, especially after this last event, and it's why I'm running Irena's Prayer, is because I think that this event shows that if you expose yourself to every deck because your deck itself is built to counter one deck, then this is what happens. Like, you have the deck that exposes itself the least is going to come to the top. I think that Irena's Prayer is going to find its way into being a tech card that I think I think even like a 1 of red, 2 of yellow, like in specifically like Warrior builds, like Ninja, like maybe 2 yellows. But like, I think that people, instead of building their deck to be bad into the field and good into, or the best it can be into Kano, I think that people are going to tech Irena's Prayers to not have this happen again. And I think that I think it's good to have an Irena's, like, just pit like 2 resources. Okay, that's fine. It's not gonna, slog up my hand. But at the same time, if I can hold that for like the big swing that you come at me with in Kano, it's like, okay, yellow Irena's, pitch it, and then you just save yourself, and that might be all you need in that matchup. So,
and I've already teched my Kano deck with 4 cards specifically for Null Rune 4 and to get life gain back. I think that I don't, to me, Sunkiss, the fact that I wasn't running earlier, I actually think it's a really good card, and it's really paid off since I've put it into my deck and started playing it with it. It doesn't bog down Kano. So it's interesting because I will tech, like to your point, Dane, for the field. So that's not just a tech against Ira. It's a tech to the field of people are coming at Kano. So I put in 2 Scalding Rains because it's a 1-drop that does 4 arcane that I can buff to 5, because you have to get damage through somehow with Kano, and avoid the full blocks every time. So yeah, I believe you're right. There will be Irena's Prayers. I think there should be. And we'll see as these armories start coming out and these skirmish results start coming, what if it's still Ira Kano, or do we have some Kasai's sneaking in there? Do we have some Brutes sneaking in there? Guardian could sneak in there for sure. So there's a lot of decks that could sneak in there.
So here's the question then, because this lets us like talk about that a little bit, is with the announcement of Skirmish, do you think that everybody like builds off of this and goes, okay, Ira is the best deck, and then Dorinthia and Kano seem pretty good, so that becomes predominant in metas? Or do you think that local metas and Skirmish metas where people are hosting local events online or whatever, do you think that those metas will just be determined because the game is still new? Do you think people are just going to play their favorite heroes and then let their local metas and, you know, metas around the world flesh themselves out? Or do you think that people are just going to be on Ira because they think Ira's best deck?
I think yes.
I think they'll still play Ira.
I mean, yes to both. Like, why not both? Yeah, I think that you're gonna have people that watched this and say, "I'm taking Ira to Skirmish because I want that cool mat or I want the prize support." Like, I think, granted, if you're playing on webcam, it's just raffle basically, like random draw, but which is fine, by the way. That's fine by me. But I think that you're gonna have both. You're gonna have people that want, like, I am gonna bring Vristavai because I've been messing with that and it's really fun, but I'm on Katsu, so like I might just, like, Katsu's my boy, so I might just bring him to 1 or 2 as well. But
the last online that me and Mark played in was after Kano's big performances. I was the only Kano player there.
Yeah, that's what I mean, that's part of it too. Is like a lot of people kind of don't care, or they're not even aware of that scene. You know, like it could just be random kitchen table gamers that are playing.
Or I think people are just, they're just afraid to play Kano too. I think a lot of people, like if they had to pick between Kano and Ira, I think they're way more prone to go with Ira.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I would prefer to do.
I think that in the Skirmish meta, you're going to see you'll see many more Ira players and Kano players because of the results and because of the simplicity of like the lack of practice. This is going to sound bad, but like you don't need as many reps with Ira to like learn the lines as you do with Kano to know like the intricacies of that deck. And I think that's
what I was saying. I mean, yeah, literally before Sealed, I had never played Ira before. I had the deck forever, never actually played it. And I played against Jason, who's played Wizard, a bajillion times. And I won my first 2 or 3 games against him. I never played it, just, you know, and it's just like, I think that goes to show it just flows so dang well that then, especially if you've played it a ton, I mean, I think it's just brutal, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe Warrior, you know, would otherwise have a chance into it, especially if you're, you know, have experience with it, but
it comes down,
I don't know.
See, the thing right now is that even as like a competitive scene, like when I say that, I'm talking about like the people that are playing in New Zealand that are like making names for themselves. A lot of that is really undeveloped. Like they're really smart players. They're really intelligent about like what the meta is going to look like. And even that they're getting it wrong. Cause I think that it's so young, like the competitive scene is so young that people don't know how people adapt yet. Like, I think that this was an overcorrection, right? Perfect example of like a young meta, like overcorrecting out of like word of mouth that was happening. Like Kano was the boogeyman. And everyone overcorrected for Kano, and Ira rose to the top because of that. And I think that they're going to overcorrect less and less as we go. And I think that the sort of world meta as a whole is going to start to see that, and they're going to realize that a lot of like there's a few decks that are kind of just bad right now. Like I don't think anyone was bringing Data Doll because they practiced a lot with it, but I think that a lot of people
there was one.
I think that a lot of people are. Thank you, Jason.
Yes.
I think that a lot of people are going to get good with heroes that they like to play and that fit their play style. And I think that there's going to be like there's so many toggles to turn in this game that you can make a lot of different decks work. And it's going to be how you tweak that to the meta and how you overcorrect how you correct properly. I think the people that correct properly and call the meta properly are going to start winning regardless of the boogeyman deck.
I think one thing that will be interesting to see is that in both games that like Dane and Jason and I have played like together, and I know Jason's playing another game, and you know Mark when we all play Destiny, one of the things that is interesting and I'm curious to see if comes, because I think right now, to Dane's point, the game is pretty new. So what you have is a lot of people who are casually playing with friends. and maybe somebody, even like some of the guys were talking about like their testing partner. It's like one guy that they test with, like their one friend that they kind of test hard with. And they do a lot of things. One of the things that I've found always to be true in the other games we've played is the emergence of like team play. And this idea of something like what we're doing currently, which is we're not a single person or two buddies doing a little bit of content. We're a group of guys who all actively play and want to be good. So as a result, when an event is coming up, we will invest a significant amount of time like learning the lines of every deck and trying to help each other. We don't just play games. Like that's the thing that I've tried to get better at with other games that we've played, and I want to do with this is I don't want to sit down with Jason and just play Kaino versus Dorinthia 15 times. I want to slow down the matchup and say, okay, like here's an interesting decision point, and this is my thinking as a Kaino player. What do you think the correct line is for that? And having those discussions, because I think that's what separates like good groups of players and like average players is good groups of players sit down and theorize instance in a game where you have a big decision point and how you win those turns to win the games. And I'm curious to see if through the skirmish events and some of this competitive opportunity rising throughout the world, if you don't start to see the emergence of like groups of people batching together to develop those teams to have an opportunity to test harder and prepare more for a and I think as a result of that you have less of these big swings, because right now it's a bunch of people like loosely trying to make a decision. So it's kind of like a school of fish. It's like, okay, we have to beat Kaino, so everybody shifts to Ira. Whereas when it's like pockets of a bunch of little things, instead of one group of 100, it's a bunch of groups of like 5 to 10. You'll have people like segment off into what they think is like this deck can beat that deck. And I know this other group is playing Ira. So I think if we tech a little bit of Kaino, but a lot for Ira, I think we can get the edge. And those little things actually, I think, do affect metas at large and big events, because people start to get a sense of, you're like, oh, I heard so and so from this team is playing this deck. So I'm curious if they're,
That's going to be really interesting, especially when the US meta like really kicks off, because I like to your point in DBS, it's finding out that, team foe is going to be on like Dark Broly, or like someone's on red, like Max Rarity Gaming is on Red Broly. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. Well, we know that, like finding that stuff out ahead of time, and you're like, oh, that's what they're, okay, well, now we're going to tech into that. And then you actually see results in the standings of decks being more prominent that are good against those. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes up once those different schools start to develop.
So I wanted to swap over to our first live event. Me and Mark went to. It was a sealed event. It was a couple hours south of the cities here in Minnesota, and it had 14 people to the first event, probably one of the largest in Minnesota, to be honest. I made a bad decision. Mark made a very good decision. I went 2-2, which I thought was an utter failure, because I went with Katsu. Dane. I went with Katsu. Okay. Horrible.
So everybody else there. No.
I'm so used to playing Guardian and Wizard that I'm like, oh, I can just cycle through my hand and stack my deck. No, you can't do that with Katsu and Sealed. It's impossible. So Mark was smart.
Fantastic Sealed deck.
What's that?
I said Katsu's a fantastic Sealed deck.
Mark, tell us about your result.
I whiffed on the final game, but I went 3-1 and lost in the mirror match to another Dorinthia. But I still think Dorinthia was definitely the right call. Felt really good. That's why I was thinking, we were talking earlier as far as what could beat Ira, and obviously Katsu isn't Ira, but still with the ninja vibe, it feels like if you actually had a dialed in good version of Dorinthia, it would definitely stand a pretty good chance for sure against Ira, because it just felt pretty good all day. I was able to just kind of withstand the underwhelming Katsu. And on the one game they pretty much decked out. Another game I kind of just outlasted them.
Did you play all ninjas?
No, just the middle two. So the first game was against Reinar, which was a newer player. That was the one that pretty much went to time. But then the middle two Katsus were slower. The one game I was able to kill him off with a steel blade shunt in the end, so that felt pretty good.
God, that's satisfying, isn't it?
Feels so good.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I gotta play more Dorinthia. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Drinthio's Bay.
it was a fun time.
That card.
And
That's
I know
how-
they're going to have
I
another
wanna-
event coming up soon. So a lot of us are going down. I don't know how many of the 4, but 3 or 4 of us are going down in a couple of weeks to do a sealed into a blitz. So I'm super excited for that. Just to spend a whole day down there. They have awesome pizza. So in between games, we're just going to mow down some pizza and then hop into blitz. So I'm super pumped for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah,
Are you
it was
going, Mark?
I think so.
Nice.
I'm not gonna say for sure it's a little ways away, but I'm
He's going.
probably
He's
going.
going.
Go.
He's going. I'll drive.
I mean,
up
it's
there
so
and grab
far
him.
away. I'm like, I can't resist driving that far away.
Mark will go.
It's just my thing.
So can we break off from everybody from Fab for 1 second? I have a special guest in my house tonight. Hold on. Special guest. Stay there. The Super Bowl is coming up on Sunday. And I have turn around so they can see your back. Ex-Minnesota Gopher. Come on in. Antoine Winfield Jr., the Super Bowl champs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers is my pick. Thank you.
All right, me too.
That was Antoine Winfield Jr. in my house right there, ex-Gopher from Minnesota.
You fucking dork.
Sorry, I'm done with my spazzes. What do you want to talk about? Like limited versus unlimited, all that kind of stuff?
I don't even know if we need to hit that. Like we've
Yeah.
nailed that coffin so many times. Like we've dug it back up and put more nails in it. And then
No, I was just going to say that
Let's keep it positive tonight. I'm
Yeah.
feeling good.
It's been real
Um,
positive, so yeah.
it's been very
You guys,
positive.
I mean, yeah, you could talk about. Well, I don't know if there's that much to talk about how it's getting introduced at another store. Hopefully, in a carry.
Oh yeah, no, I was
Oh
gonna
yeah,
actually
we
say
can talk
something
about that. Yeah.
So,
All right.
so funny enough. Speaking of Steelblade, we we were teaching.
Wait. Dreaded drip into a steel blade. I mean, come on. This was done on purpose.
You can't.
What about Flock of the Feather?
Flock of the Fuckers? Yep, there's that card.
I
too.
played that one tonight.
He
I hope you got
did.
the bleep button ready
So-
for that.
Yeah, this is going to be a whole bunch of bleeps, but it's funny because we were teaching like a local, don't want to call him a legend, but he's basically like the man that is in charge of like leading the local flock, right? And he's a judge for DBS. Great guy, Dom. We brought our stuff for after the DBS locals to kind of play some Fab like introductory games and show them the ropes because Battleground Cafe wants to start running it and running events, and they want to support the game. And they're trying to get in with the distributor and all that. Blake gives him a Ira deck. Was it Ira? It was Ira, yeah.
It was
Gave him
Ira,
an
yeah.
Ira deck. And then he ran Warrior and he's just throwing shit at this kid the whole game. And then Dom is like trying to pull something out at the end and swings his Kodachis at him and he kills him with a steel blade shunt. I'm like, you're just gonna make him like he's like doing the attack reaction thing, and he's like, oh, that like normally you would want to block like this, but like a warrior says fuck that, and like here,
Don't
this
just
is
give it to him.
well,
I
no,
respect
you
that,
don't,
Blake.
you don't give it to him, but like you don't do the feel bad shit. Like
I did.
run
I will
Guardian.
say-
Screw your game, Brock.
I felt a little bad when on one turn, and Dane was trying to help him walk through some of the things, and I was trying not to reprise him to death, like with how Warrior can definitely get a little out of hand with the reprise. In one turn, like he's like, yeah, I can block with these 2 cards, and I'm just like, I feel so bad right now, and it's like Iron Song response, and he's like, I don't have anything. I was like, out for blood. He's like, nope. And I was like, spend my last one. Another out for blood. He's like, how many is that? And I was like, 12. Just like, it's like, it's 12. And he's like, and I'm blocking 5. And I was like,
It was
like,
such a so
yeah.
I was kind of helping Dom with his deck and learning, and I wasn't even playing to like try to be I was literally just like, how can I help Dom not completely lose momentum and feel bad during this game? Because Blake was not. He was like, I'm gonna take this shit from you. I don't care. I want you to feel bad. I don't want you to hate the game. And I'm like, okay, you need to take this damage so you don't empty your hand too much. And like, he's a smart player. Like, he's a fantastic DBS player. So like, he picked up on it. But I was like, momentum is huge. And as soon as you lose it to warrior, you will just feel bad.
So you want to block unless you're playing warrior, then you don't block because that just makes it a whole lot worse than when you do block.
it's only a 2
And if
coming
you do
in.
block, you have to block too much because you don't know what's gonna happen. It could go completely sideways on you.
I was
And I was
just,
just like, and then I will say I lined up like completely, like, you know how you dumb luck sometimes into turns where I was like, oh no, we're at dreaded Kadachi lethal range. Like, we've hit it. I was at 2, and he's
Don't
like,
worry.
and I draw my hand, and I was like, here we go. Like, we're on the Kadachi thing. I draw my hand. I was like, oh, this is gonna feel bad for Dom. And he's like, Kadachi for 1. I was like, yellow sigil, take 2 life, take 1 damage. And he's like, Kadachi for 2. I was like, red sigil, gain 3 life, lose 2. And he's like, okay. It's just like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to. Like, I didn't know it's coming. And then so then he like throws a big attack at me, and I block a couple of it so I can put a little pressure back. And then I draw another red sigil. I've got like 3 life. He's like, Kadachi for. I was like, red sigil, gain 3, lose 1. And he's like, okay. Just like,
It's like, this game's really good.
yeah.
So, moral of the story, our community has grown leaps and bounds over the past 30 to 60 days. We've had stores. We've had the store down south that has really pumped it. They did a 1-hour learn to play before a sealed event. Highly recommend sealed for new players. Then they don't get feel bad Blakes coming in there smashing their face in. Everybody's on a more level playing field. So I do think sealed, you start with WTR, but our community has grown a ton. We got 10 at a store that didn't even have product yet for just a play session. Then we had 14 at a sealed. Then you guys had people over after DBS teaching tonight for just not even, we didn't even announce that. Nobody announced that. It was just kind of an in-store thing. So this community is really easy to grow. If you love playing it, it's not that hard. And now that you can slowly get out into freedom and play in person, I think we're going to have locals where we're going to see 25, 30 people eventually in this game, to be honest.
This game's going to explode. The game sells itself. Like, we were like playing the game with Dom, but we had 2 or 3 people stop by and just leaving, and like they ended up hanging out and like watching us play, or watching Blake and Dom play. So yeah, the game sells itself. You just got to be a good advocate for the game and like show them that you're willing to teach, and people are going to flock to this game because it's good.
And I will say, it's going to be really easy to do this for 2 reasons. One, this is so much fun. I recommend anybody do this. If you have a new player, this is super fun to do. I did it with the owner down, I'm just going to say Atlantis Games, or Atlantis Hobby down in Mankato. We just each grabbed 6 packs at WTR, cracked them open, made decks, and played. Like, if you're a new player and you're learning and you have somebody to teach you, or you want to teach people, we have Unlimited that's going to be in stock like crazy. Unlimited Monarch's going to be in stock like crazy because there's been a ton out there and that's not selling out. And that'll be in May, where you can just grab 6 packs and crack them open and play some games. It's a great way to learn. You're not going against a finely tuned deck. I just think sealed is amazing in this game. Yeah. Oh, and they'll have the pre-constructed Blitz decks, which will be really good.
Pre-constructed Blitz. Honestly, that's probably what I'm most excited for, because I'm going to be able to just like grab a couple of those and sleeve them up, and just new people that are interested, just be like, grab this, I'll grab this. Yeah. That's going to be super easy.
I ordered all of them.
I love that they're doing that.
Yeah. And I'm not going to touch those. Those will stay sleeved. Yeah. Like you said, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is what's cool is we've talked about this before, but Blitz is a really good format for new players. It minimizes, it takes down some of the interactions, and it kind of speeds the game up a little bit, where the game is, you're able to finish it in a little more reasonable time. I know, like, when we were early on trying to play Classic Constructed, it felt like those games, I was like, man, if there's a time limit on this game and it's less than like 2 hours, I'm never going to be able to finish a game in time, because like we would get down to like single digit health, and it felt like we were taking years, because you couldn't stack your deck right, you weren't cycling fast enough. But I think in Blitz kind of like takes some of that away, where like the cycle and the stack isn't as important because you're going to run into everything pretty quick, or you're just not going to run into it at all. So it doesn't even matter. Like, you could poorly cycle your deck and it doesn't matter because you'll never see the cards you stuck on the bottom anyway. And
it's why it feels so bad about me and Dane's Katsu Bravo match that has like over 2,000 views. Now it's like the gameplay's so bad there. Stop watching.
I still feel good about my Katsu gameplay there. It felt good to play into your Bravo. I love just mosquito biting you to death.
I know, it's just funny because we were so not good back then.
Yeah.
Not that we're great now, but we're much better players and have hundreds and hundreds of more games than we did back then.
Yeah. We understand cycling deck, which is really important. But I think what's cool about Flesh and Blood is that having the alternate formats that are actually viable formats is really good. And I think, to Jason's point, I will say 100%. I know there are people who love sealed. I avoid sealed like the plague in most games. People will be like, hey, the new set's coming out. You come into the sealed event? I'm like, no, I would literally rather die, because sealed is a very unenjoyable experience for me, because I don't like untuned decks. Like, that's just something that drives me. I don't like playing bad decks. It's not fun to me. I want to play a good deck. But I think this game is unique because you get enough of the cards and the decks are good enough with just enough of the cards that they are actually functioning in a way that makes them reasonable. Like, they're not just absolute dumpster fires. Whereas like other games we'd play, it's like half the games you play would just go to time and you're winning or losing on tiebreakers because like, I can't even finish this game. Like, I just deck out every game. And this game actually like has a really good sealed, a good feeling to the sealed game. I think Classic Constructed has a very unique feel and is completely different and rewards a different kind of player. And I think Blitz is another kind of game, but they're all really good formats and they're all formats that are fun to play. So it's like, to me, that's such a good thing for a game to have exist, is multiple formats that all feel different and all feel unique. And they don't just feel like a health total difference. That's the thing. Is I think the biggest thing I've learned the more I play this game is that Blitz decks feel different. Like the way that they play function and feel different. And that's really cool, because a lot of times if you play a lower health game or something, or a bigger health game with bigger decks, it doesn't feel like a different game. It just feels like a longer game or a shorter game. But in this, like, Blitz feels very different from playing Constructed. When we play Blitz for a while and then play Constructed or vice versa, like, there's a huge mindset change that you kind of have to get into a lot of times. And I think that's really cool. And that's why I think the game has a huge opportunity to expand itself, because people who like sealed are going to have a good experience, and even people who don't like sealed have a good experience playing sealed and vice versa. So
yeah, like, I have no interest in playing Viserai Constructed. I just don't like. I don't like the play style enough. But Viserai and Blitz is so goddamn fun. Like, just being able to build it the way that you can like do the giant swing. Like, I love that deck. But yeah, no, it just is a very different feeling.
Any final points from anybody? Mark, do you have anything else you want to say before we leave?
No, I thought sealed was super, super fun to play. I frankly did not mind doing like drafts and stuff back in Destiny. It always kind of catered to my play style of slow and tedious, probably, and kind of I would usually excel at that in draft, because I would just kind of, take what was the best of what's there and just be able to just slowly grind people down. I think is kind of my thing in games, sadly. But so I enjoyed sealed, and I'm kind of looking forward to another one. But I think, it plays really well, because I think even, compared to Destiny, there'd be games where, it's pretty much like I can kind of aimlessly attack with these weapons I shouldn't even have, and it's dumb. But in this, it still clicks pretty well. So I think it was a good experience, and makes sense how they done it. So positive stuff all the way around.
It's a good time.
I think my big thing to take away from this podcast is the fact that we definitely are believers in constructive criticism, and we have not been shy about it. I know we've taken some heat sometimes from people about it. So we want to make sure that we emphasize the fact that we are incredibly grateful for LSS doing a really good job listening. I think the biggest thing that I appreciate being able to tell Dom tonight, not from somebody who's like just trying to pawn the game off on somebody to hopefully grow a community, but as a player who's genuinely happy and feels heard by a company, is the fact that LSS is listening, and they're doing their absolute best to push product out because they know it's important to get the players product in Unlimited. They're listening, and they're doing webcam events and doing these skirmishes to give access to things. They did the live stream for everybody of the calling and have made all the videos available. And I think it goes to show that, while we have been big proponents of giving criticism where we think it needs to be done, that they're listening. And I think that it speaks very highly to the team at LSS that they don't get defensive in that moment, but rather just go, these are players who love our game, and they're not being critical because they don't like us or they hate our game or they think we're terrible people. They love the game and they wanted to see it succeed, and they're doing their best to listen to players and listen to the community and doing whatever they can to make this game succeed, and to give the community the benefit of the doubt and saying, hey, we know that you're hungry for the game and you love the game, and they're working really hard. And I'm really, really grateful to have a company that listens and wants the players to thrive.
So I think what we do right now, just to show everyone who thinks that we could be negative Nancy's, like, we just give it up to LSS. We just slow clap everyone together, and we all stand. Everyone stand up and clap for LSS because they did it.
Yep.
I'm not standing.
No, so no one. So I support LSS.
We know what happens when Jason stands. Okay, Jason should not stand and walk away from a microphone.
Yeah. You don't know if I have pants on or not. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for episode 28. It was great to have Mark on again, and hopefully we see more of him in the future. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you can get those notifications when our new videos come out. We got some gameplay coming out. Jason's got the interview with third place.
Third place,
top
Third
8
place.
from the calling. Going to be coming out on Monday, and we got podcasts and gameplay coming out. So hope to see you in the future. Thanks for joining us. Peace.